What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. We are back in the garage tonight working on the 78. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, same name, you'll notice I put a picture up of some coilovers. We got some coilovers for the front of this car. Now, I bought this before this car was ever even on the road. We got a kit from UMI Performance. Coilover kit. We got some welding brackets. These bolt into the holes that hold the upper control arms in. They got some rings you cut out. They go actually through the subframe, mount in, yada yada yada, for some coilovers. Now, coilover control arms are unbelievably expensive for these cars. Don't know why, but they are upwards of $1,000 for some decent ones. The cheapest pair of coilover control arms I could find were $400. I bought them years and years ago when I bought that kit. Never got around to them because this is them. There's these cheap little thin, weirdly deep angled bin, yada yada yada. They don't work. They wouldn't fit for my application. Obviously, this is not a stock car, being that it doesn't fit. So when I put these tires on, these are 31 inch. These are 31 inch tires. So when I put them on, I found out these tires are not centered perfectly in the wheel well. I measured this thing 1,000 times, the subframe, made sure it was perfectly straight, everything. The wheels are set back a little bit. So to offset that, I had to do this. Now, if you notice, we have a weird caster angle going on right here. These adjustable upper control arms, I had to adjust them so far forward to shift the tire this way to get to the center of the wheel well where it wouldn't hit front or back. And even then I still had to trim just a hair, but regardless. So stock lowers anyway won't work for me because these are the stock lowers, and you know, obviously they're fixed, they don't move, so you can't really adjust anything or adjust to the top, but that gives my caster angle weird. Steering is very sensitive. She tries to jump one way or another when you do this. So what we're gonna do today, or attempt to do, is make some lower control arms. So I already bought these, so I'm kind of screwed with these, but at least I can use this. So what I did, I already chopped this one up to pieces. What I'm gonna do, cut these off. This is a stock ball joint. So I'm gonna use this lower cup. And what we got here are these bad boys. Now these are, I believe, 2.5 inches wide, which is what stock is. I got these. I got some square tube. So we're gonna try to make us some lower control arms coming at the end here. Butt this into this lower cup here and make some mounts for our coilovers. Now the coilovers haven't showed up yet. They should be here in 2 days, I've been told, but that shouldn't stop me out. I'll add the coil mount after I make the control arm first. So what we're gonna do, I got these so they're adjustable. I can fine tune a little bit here and there. What we gotta do is measure. This is a stock lower control arm I had. So what we're gonna do is measure off this and off my funky caster angle and figure out, I need to shift it this way. I need to figure out how much to make the caster angle back correct. And obviously these are almost squarish. So it's pretty much just gonna be following this, just with a little kickback to the side. So, and then we'll come in here in the middle and make our coilover mount. Now they make coilovers that bolt into the stock locations. They make coilover mounts you can mount into here for, you know, that hold the actual coilover, all that good jazz. But like I said, these don't work for me because my angle's so funky. So what we're gonna do, this is a driver side control arm off a 79 parts car I had. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna make a jig that mounts, you know, holds these upright. I'll get my measurements off the car where my ball joint needs to be, and I'll go ahead and trim these off. That way I can tack this where it needs to be once I make the jig for this. And then it'll just be run some pipe and weld everything together. So first thing we're gonna do is gotta finish cutting those off, and then we will go ahead and get mounting to a jig for this. So let's jump into it. All right, first thing we're gonna do is make a couple mounts, the weld in so that I can make sure all the eyelets line up the same. The original bolts on these control arms are 9/16. I don't have a 9/16, so we're improvising here. Like a glove. Just gonna do that 3 more times. All right, so went ahead and made the first set of mounts. You can see how that works. I'm gonna go ahead and just weld them to the table. That way they don't move anywhere, and then I'll make the second mounts. Same thing, yada yada. Alrighty, so got the mounts in, kind of crude, but they work. Bolts go in and out. So now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna cut this off, but we're gonna come over here to the car. So, as you can see, try to get you the straightest view I can. Got a little bit of a kilter to her. So what we're gonna do is you gotta figure out what straight up and down is. And then we gotta figure out the halfway point, because we're not only gonna shift the lower ball joint forward, but we gotta shift the upper ball joint backwards so that the tire doesn't move. The tire stays centered where it is. We just want the control arm to angle back some. So we're gonna take a level everything out. We'll figure out what the distance is between, the edge and level. Split that in half, and that should be our center point to move that forward and that much that backwards to make this thing level. When in reality, you want to be back. You actually want to have a little bit of backwards caster. I honestly don't remember if that's negative. I'm assuming that's negative. So we're gonna judge it just a hair to that side. So let me grab some tools and we will start measuring. All right. So far, what have we learned? Drop spindles. They're just what they say they are. They drop the spindle downward, which means the lower ball joint is actually, trying to get you in there good, above the center line on the spindle here. Which means that if I rotate this upper ball joint backwards, it's actually gonna push this forward. So after a lot of weird measurements and strings and new levels and such, I have figured out, to the best of my knowledge, if this is just a hair off back center, this is gonna move forward close to 1/2 inch, which means I need to move this ball joint back 1/2 inch. So, on the new control arm, here's our old control arm, right? So we actually gotta move the ball joint that way, where the center line of the ball joint will be somewhere around there. Now, it's not much, but like I said, it's enough to give me that weird caster angle. So, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna make one more little bracket here, come up and curve, and fit it over the end of this, so that I can weld to the table here 1/2 inch over, which then I can bolt my ball joint to. And this angle is actually pretty decent. It's a good angle. The ball joint needs to be same height and everything where it is, just 1/2 inch over. Because I'm gonna build to the same height. I ordered my coilovers to where the coilover mount will be right here on top. So we should be good to go height-wise on that. So I'm gonna build everything the same specs of this thing, which means the ball joint needs to be the same height and angle as this one is. So what we're gonna do is make a little L bracket, drill it over here, fit it over there, so we can weld to the table and weld that one on there, so we can get our general layout. Then we can pull this out of here and start making the new one. So let's jump on that bracket. Alrighty, now let's tack together. That's just freestanding right now. So that's got our shape. So we know the ball joint will sit right there. It rides all the way down to the lip right here. So we know that's always seated. All I can do is bolt the ball joint to that. And then we know it's in the right spot and it's in the right angle. Because I've centered the ball joint in its cup as best I can. So now all I gotta do is slide this bad boy over a 1/2 inch, weld it to the table, and then we can take this out and go ahead and start mocking up the new stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and weld this in real quick like. All right, so I went ahead and cut all the things, the branches off this thing, and I went ahead and centered this ball joint and tacked it into place so that it won't move. So I can bolt it up there, and I know that my angle's right. So we'll stick her in here. All right. And that, my friends, is our setup. I'm gonna go ahead and angle these. I am gonna angle it after the curve on this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some measurements off that, see where I need to be. We can go ahead and prop these up where they need to be. And then all we gotta do is start running some tube. Plan is kind of follow the outline of this and come in down into here. Same over here, and then I'll run a cross piece back here and one up front, and that's where I'll run 2 stringers for my coilover mount. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy out. And we'll go ahead, what I'm probably gonna do is put this back in up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just Sharpie trace the outline just so we get a general idea, because clearly it's notched here for the tire to come in and all that good stuff, and then we've got a notch over there for the sway bar link and all that jazz. So we're gonna go ahead and just mimic this pattern because GM thinks it's good enough, so let's go with that. So we'll go ahead and do this, and let's start tracing this out. Okay, so first thing I did, I put the old controller back in and traced it out. That's the rough shape of what we're gonna do. Obviously the ball joints moved over a little bit, so we're not following these exactly. But what I did, went ahead and cut a piece, 18-inch long piece. We'll lay it out here and just try to generally match this shape a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. We just need it close enough. So what I'm gonna do, take a couple little pie cuts out of this thing and just try to bend it to this shape. Just try to get it to go, from this angle to that angle, basically. So we're gonna throw this thing in the vise, take a couple cuts out of it. Decent first angle. Basically what's gonna be like is something along those lines. So now, if you notice this old control arm here, it actually kicks up and curves. So this first kick is actually gonna be our curve. This first kick is gonna be our first curve, and then we're gonna curve up from here to level everything out. Of course, this is welded pipe, so I gotta get rid of that little seam in the middle so that fits on here so we can get a better accuracy. So we'll grind that down real quick. So, as you can see, we got the shape pretty well good. It honestly even follows our Sharpie mark pretty much, except for a little bit over. So what we're gonna do now is, if you can see, this fits right up under here. I'm gonna trace the shape of this circle in here, and we'll cut it out, and then we can just weld this to this cup right here. Now this cup is a little bit thinner than this is, so we might have to take a small little pie cut out here this way so we can shrink the end of it. We'll do that in a second if we have to. So let's get the Sharpie and make some marks. All right, I don't know if you can really see right over here. We got this fitting pretty well, but what we're gonna do You can see this. The tube is wider than the actual ball joint cut. So what we're gonna do is take a sliver out of this to bend these down to meet the same width so we can weld it all together. Once we get this tacked together, then we just gotta do the other side. And then we'll have us a daggum control arm. Well, on the outside. So what we're gonna do is I've got some, see my mark there, that's where I'm gonna cut from there back to here, and we'll take a little sliver out of this so this top plate can bend down, because on the ball joint, the bottom is where the ball joint stops. So I can't have any weld on the top lip of this where it can interfere with the ball joint seating all the way flat. So I'm gonna give myself a good lip on the bottom to weld the bottom part to it. Something like that, so I can make a good bead of weld to it, and then I'll cut and bend the top plate down to it, because if I overlip here a little bit, no big deal. The ball joint doesn't meet all the way top anyway. It's just got this boot on it, and we should be good to go. So, I'm gonna get to cutting this, and then we'll see how it fits. Alrighty, after some cutting, a little bit of beating, we got a nice little joint here now. It's not too bad. I gotta do some cleanup where it meets the cup. Backside could use a little bit of shaping, but otherwise not too bad. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and tack it in so we can get this one side considered done, and then we can start on the other side. So let's knock this out real quick. And just like that, we have one side. Whoa, this may not seem like a lot to y'all. This is the combination of probably like 3 hours for me, 3.5 hours. So, good thing is, so this thing has some wobbling. Obviously I can twist this and this can twist and everything. The ball joint's welded still, so it's stuck at that angle. So I got a little give, I got adjustment here, there, and everywhere else. So, good thing is, that's where I need it to be, that's where I want it to be. Now we can move on to this side. Now this side is pretty much the opposite of this one. It curves this way instead of that way. This side's where the tire comes in and all that good jazz. So we're gonna go ahead and get on started on this one. This one, the old control arm, it's a real quick, sharp turn. So we're basically gonna have to start our cuts right here, pretty much at the end of the bung here. And then give it the old hoo-ha. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure, get a rough estimate, cut a piece bigger than I need, and we'll get to going. I am gonna come and drill some holes in this so I'm gonna weld it here, and then I can plug weld it all the way around too, just for some extra strength. Once I get this side done, we'll tack everything in, make sure it's good to go. I'm gonna run a crossbar from here to here to give it some strength, and then I'll run another one somewhere up here, and then I'll run two pieces of flat bar between here and here, and that'll be my actual lower coilover mount. So it'll be similar to this, except for instead of having one here, it'd be like having 2 channels like this, so I can do it bolt through there. But coilovers aren't supposed to be here till tomorrow, which is good, because I still haven't finished this. And then once I get that, I'll have to figure out where they're gonna land on that guy. But let's go ahead and jump on this one so we can try to get this framework done. All right, sorry for the noise, it's raining and the building is loud. I went ahead and cut a length of tubing on this side. So what we're gonna do is mock this first bend right here where it kicks in, and then this first bend where it kicks up. Obviously it's gonna be opposite, but we're gonna keep that level because I wanna get this level on both sides, because we're gonna run a cross piece here and a cross piece up front so we can run our hangers for our brand new coilovers. Just came in today, QA1 coilovers. They're, I believe 14 inch, something around that. But they are nice, they're adjustable for the, I believe, the rebound and the compression. So they're gonna be quite an upgrade from what we got. So we gotta just go ahead and finish up these control arms. So I'm gonna go ahead, measure this bend out, mark it, cut it, same with this bend, and we will throw it down the line. So that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna tack this in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and mark out for our back bend. We're gonna come in because we want to try to follow this curve here. Come in somewhere around here and make one more bend so it meets up over here on the side of the ball joint. And we tack this to the ball joint and we should be all but done with this master cross piece. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna tack this up. We'll mark this out first and then we will get cutting to it. Alrighty, came out pretty good. It's a pretty close fit. Trying to hold it up with a pencil. That looks pretty good. I gotta trim it down like we did this one because she's still a little bit too thick. And then we can tack this thing together. Once we get that tacked together, I'm gonna pull these out. I gotta drill some holes in these so I can plug weld them. Should have done this one before I welded it to the ball joint. But I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and do this one now. Smart. So then we'll cut this, tack it to the ball joint, and then we can work on our cross brace. And yeah, I'm gonna run a cross brace somewhere around here. Somewhere around here to here. And run one up here. That way I can run like I said, a little hoop to hold the shock. I don't know exactly where yet, because once we get this control arm made, we are gonna have to go ahead and mount these. Because this, let's see, sits up here. I'll cut out this whole part right here and we'll actually cut this hole larger. And these holes go through the bolts right there. And then this welds to the back in here and down here. So we'll get the arm out, take the spring. Once I get the arm finished, we'll take the spring and the shock out, put the new arm on, weld these in. And then that way I can measure how high I need to be to make my lower mount, because obviously I can only go so far with these. So that is that. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and cut my little notches out of that. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and drill holes first, then cut my notches. And I'll drill holes in this before I weld it just to make it easier. And then we will tack all this together and work on the crossbars. So let's jump to it. Alrighty, we are officially tacked up and good to go. I am gonna go ahead now and put a tack in some of these just to hold these where they are exactly in place. And now what we need to do is worry about our crossbars. We're gonna base our crossbars off of the old control arm where the coilover sat, or where the coil spring sat. The coilover needs to be in the same place. So we'll measure out for that so we can get a good spacing on these two, and we'll transfer it over to this. So let's do that real quick. Alrighty, so after way too much time, like an hour, I got the two cross braces pinned. They fit pretty good. I went ahead, I had to go ahead and weld a couple of these seams up so that I could put these braces in. I went ahead and just welded this straight across, but the braces are in, which means that this control arm is officially tacked together completely. So now we'll go ahead and start cleaning it up real quick so I can go ahead and lay the full welds down. I am gonna weld it fully in the jig just to keep it from, well, to keep movement down to a minimum. It's gonna move a little bit, but we should be all right because everything's adjustable anyway. So go ahead and hit this with the flat disc real quick, and then we will get to welding. Alrighty, so got the control arm done, completely welded. I gotta do some cleanup work, paint, all that good stuff, but that comes later. What we're gonna work on now is the car. Now, I went ahead and took the front suspension apart. If you want to know how to do that, I think it was the first video I ever made was me taking the suspension apart, or putting the lift spindles on, excuse me. So what we're gonna work on now is the upper coil brackets. They're gonna sit here, which means I gotta cut this part out. So we're gonna go ahead and just slice all this stuff. They want you to slice it right here all along the top, because this will sit in and actually hold into the two bolts and hold the upper control arm on, and then you weld all the way around the perimeter, hold that stuff in. So we're gonna go ahead and get the grinder out, go ahead and see if we can't cut this thing off so we can get some room in here, so we can start measuring for this. All right, now, got some room in here. Now obviously, I gotta do a lot of clean up and get all this stuff off. All right, you get the gist of how that's gonna go. So I got to, looks like I need to notch some more up here to make that fit. Honestly, that's pretty good. I'll mark this out and try to cut it close, that way I can have more to weld to hold this in. So you can see the idea, you're gonna end up coming down here, welding this, you can weld all around that. Same thing on that side. Shock's gonna come through here. Now I do have, if I can find them, pause. So, as you can see, this pocket is where the coil spring sat, kind of tucked up behind these little lips. The kit came with these little rings. I want you to notch out to that size, and then you can weld these, and then I want you to weld those into here to get the coil to get the coil over. More room to work, more room to play. So we're gonna get in here, clean up all these welds. Notch this one more good time. Clean up all these welds, notch this one more time up here. And we'll go ahead and mark out and cut the hole for that too. So let's jump on it. Alrighty, it has come time to cut our hole right here. Now, obviously can't get an angle grinder in there. I believe in the video I watched when I ordered the kit, they used a plasma cutter. Still got one of those either. So, what I do have is a torch and a handy dandy fire extinguisher just in case. So, I don't think anything's gonna catch on fire. Shouldn't, hopefully. We'll find out, I guess. I'm gonna try to cut this real quick and hope nothing bad happens. Alrighty, so after a lot of time spent with the grinder, finally got everything fitting. So we can get you in. We got this fitting up tight against here, all the way against the back, so we can get a good weld around it. I got this fitting pretty good, decent all the way around. Small enough gaps to fill some welds. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and weld the ring in, put the bolts to the bracket first, and bolt the brackets up, and then we can hang the coil over. And we can hang the coil over and then see where we need to put the mount for the lower control arm. I'm gonna pull the stuff back out and grind all the paint off of this thing so we can get to welding. Let's jump to it. Alrighty, so excuse the noise. I got the fan running because it was getting a little smoky in here. So I went ahead and got everything mocked back up. You can see we got the coilover hung in there for time being. Went ahead and bolted this back on. I just remembered though, I did flip these from side to side to get them to angle this much. I'm gonna have to flip them again so they angle back, but we'll get that in a minute. So I've got the lower control arm in, and I've got it set at the same height as stock was from the cut of the ball joint to the top of the subframe here. So this is where it needs to be height-wise. So I know this is where my ball joint needs to be, this is where my control arm needs to be. I keep forgetting to get new ball joints because I welded that one shut, but so we can't really hang that yet, but we'll get there. And so our coilover hanging here just in the standard position, as you can see, fully extended. I'm actually hanging about 2.5 inches lower than the center line of this cross support right here, which means I got 5 inches of travel. So that's half my travel, which is perfect. So I can actually run a bar straight across here, and that should give me about 2 inches up, 2 inches down, give or take. So what we're gonna do is mark out my spots where I need to be. I'm gonna use a piece of this channel, which is the same width as the eyes on this thing, and I'm just gonna notch out a hole in it. We'll weld some washers to the end to kind of reinforce the ends here. Drill some holes in it. We'll run our bolts through, and here we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure one out, cut one out, and then I can cut the hole, and we'll bolt it to the coilover, and then get it all centered up on the arm, and we should be good to go. So let's get to cutting one of these out, and we will jump on it. All right, so I just finished welding in the new lower coil mount. Let that cool down for a minute, and then I got some of the best ball joints money can buy, of course. We're gonna press in a new ball joint, and then we got to, I still gotta flip this upper control arm back. He said last time I flipped it so it could get more angle forward, so I gotta flip it back so we can get some back adjustment in it and flip the ball joint over, and then we can assemble this thing for real. So I'm gonna let that cool. I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over real quick, and then we'll press a new ball joint in and throw this thing together. All right, after way more time than that should have taken, ended up having to do a little trimming down here a couple times, take it in, take it out, take it in, take it out. 2 hours later, everything's in, new ball joint. I got this flipped around. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit of preload on this. I don't know where I'm gonna be until I get everything put together, but I'm gonna tighten that up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and throw the spindle back on. And we can start adjusting, see how she sits. Alrighty. It's obviously just loosely assembled. This has gotta come apart probably 2 or 3 times again before I'm done with even just this side part, even begin on the passenger side, because one, I gotta paint everything. 2, gotta work out all the kinks and the bugs and adjust everything and yada, 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 yada. Still got a kind of funky angle right now on caster, but haven't adjusted any of that. I can adjust the bottom if need be. I'll throw the brakes on real quick so we get the tire on this thing, get on the ground, see what it looks like. So let's do that real quick. Not too bad. Let's compare. Coil spring, or well, coilover to stock spring. So sit a little bit lower on the coil side, but like I said a second ago, I just guesstimate and add a little bit of preload to it, so I have to adjust the spring some more, which can bring up a little more height wise. Depends on how much we like it stiffness wise, but not too bad so far. Of course, the battery's still cold dead. I have a wiring issue I gotta fix. So I'm gonna go charge the battery, let it charge overnight. We can take this thing around, at least down the street, and see how it feels. On the one side, I guess you want to call it. Make sure we still got good steer and everything. I still got to go back and adjust, my caster angle and all that crap. So that'll all change everything too. But it's on the ground and it hasn't fallen off yet, so that's good. So we're gonna go ahead, like I said, I'm gonna charge the battery, and then we will start fine tuning this thing, add a little bit more preload when we need it, and all that good stuff. And then once we get this side done, we'll pull it all back apart, paint it, final assembly, and then rinse and repeat on the other side. So I'm gonna get this battery charged and we will jump back on it. Alrighty, we went ahead and added a tab for the sway bar mount. And I went ahead, if you can see, and welded some washers on the lower mount for the coilover, just to give it a little strength, because that's where all the weight's pivoting on. And I gave her a good old slathering of this Rust-Oleum High Performance. We actually use this to coat our gooseneck in, and it is held up for 3 years so far. So I'm gonna let this dry real quick. It's an ugly paint job, but no one's gonna see it up close. So we're gonna let this dry real quick, and then we will go ahead and final assemble everything. I did go ahead and hit this with some spray paint just because it's so hard to get in there. I'd never get in there with a brush. Hit that with some spray paint, no big deal. Coilovers, we went ahead. This is how much you had to adjust it to set the ride height. Honestly, It's honestly about a 1/2 inch too high. So if it doesn't settle after a little while, we can crank it down just a hair. But we'll go ahead and let this dry. Once that dries, we will throw it all back together for final assembly on the driver's side. And then we get to do it all again on the passenger side. So let's let this dry. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a finished product. We got everything finished up. Coilover fits in there good. I got plenty of travel. If you notice, brake line's a little tight. I'm gonna go ahead and order some steel braided ones because these are for the Blazer, which is what these lift spindles are for. And they're kicked out here, and I've bent them because I actually kicked out all the way to here. But if I bend them more, I'm pretty sure they'll break. So I'm gonna go ahead and order some steel braided ones, but this is full droop and it's still got a little bit of looseness, not much, but. So that's a wrap. Now I didn't weld and grind any of the welds down. I just threw some paint over and called it a day. Went ahead and hit that with some spray paint up there. We've got everything good. As you can see, the wheel's a little turned, but we have a heck of a lot better caster angle. It's actually pretty much straight up and down. So that will do a whole lot better than that. So I am actually gonna end this video here because this took me over a month because, well, kids, life, we went on vacation, everybody got sick. All that stuff. I am working on the passenger side. I've already got a decent head start. Got almost one arm, which fits just like so. So I'm working on this, but it's gonna be another month or so before I finish this thing probably because I only come out here at night once the kids go to sleep and I don't have a lot of time to work on. Not to mention, I used my torches twice, left the oxygen bottle on, and it all drained out. So I gotta fill my torch bottles again so I can cut the hole for this coilover. But, besides all that, we have one side done. Everything fits, everything moves. I've cycled it up and down, everything. Coilover, I adjusted all the preload, everything. Ride height is the exact same as it was before we did this. Caster angle's a lot better, and I still don't have any rubbing, which is perfect. Everything's good on that, and now I'm happy. It's not the prettiest control arm in the world, but hey. Apparently my camera died making that little outro, but anyway, that's it on this side. Like I said, I'm working on the other side right now. I'm gonna knock it out here hopefully soon. And like always, appreciate y'all watching. Give us a like, subscribe, give us a little comment how we're doing down the bottom. And we got a couple more videos on this one, and then I'm gonna get to that one, I promise. I promise we're gonna get back to that one. I got half a video made, if you can see. There's some situation going on in the rear window, but we'll get back to that one real soon once we finish this one back up and running. But thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Pull this out of here. That was weird. Who's out? Put a brand new one in before we put him in the truck. On the car. Why do I keep? We're gonna throw this thing in the vise, and alrighty, we are official. We are where we're gonna work on now. All right, so after some very much time with, let's see where we need to be for our control arms. So if I shoot, pause.